whether you're local, hyper local, a couple states away, I don't really think it matters. I think it's like, all right, what do you have an advantage in? Like, do you know people locally? Do you have a car, right? Do you have some, do you want to go look at properties, right? Or is it, hey, I have family that's 3 hours away from here who's interested in doing this with me? Well, okay, well, maybe you should market to them, have them be the boots on the ground. Like, I don't know. It's tough to answer that. Like, what is your unfair advantage in this space? And then take advantage of that.
Welcome back, everybody, to Kingdom Real Estate Investing Podcast. I'm your host, Ellis Hammond. And man, I am so pumped to have on Ryan today. Ryan Corcoran, welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks, man. Happy to be here.
Dude, I heard you originally on a good friend's podcast, Axel, who does a lot inside of our community. And I know you know him well. And dude, was just like blown away, I mean, at your perspective of the real estate investing. And not only just your perspective, but like how many tools you have in your tool belt that makes you a successful real estate investor. And so, dude, I just would love for you, before we jump into the episode today, tell folks a little bit about kind of who you are, just your starting point, where you're at today. And if you don't mind, just even kind of how old you are, I think that would be inspiring for folks who are listening to this show.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So I'm 28 right now, about to be 29. I bought my first property when I was 22. So I've been doing it for, almost 7 years now. So it's been an interesting ride. I've pivoted a handful of times, but, I started off.
Real quick, not to enter your story. I just always love, like, this is what I've learned in business, being in it for several years now. You're only 28, but you have 7 years. You're a 7-year entrepreneur, which honestly makes you older than a lot of people in this industry. And so I think that's really, really interesting for people to think about. Like, guys, your age is, you start at 16 and you're 25 and own $1 billion portfolio. Well, you've been doing this for 7 years. You've been doing this for a decade. So, I think that's a really interesting, you started young, you're 28, you're really successful, but it's because you've been doing it for 7 years. So
people hear like, all right, yeah, you're 28, like must be nice. Like, dude, like most people start like when they're, 28, 29, 30, like 30, mid 30s. Like I started when I was 22, right? So like I've been doing it for 7 years. And I'm not a rookie anymore.
And so you went through the hard, how many years have you gone through? Probably didn't make a whole lot, right? Probably had to beat your head against the wall.
Yeah, bootstrapping for a while. Absolutely.
So I just think, man, that's encouraging. Like, how this dude's 28? Well, yeah, but he's 7-year-old entrepreneur. Like that's a lot of experience. So not to take away, again, I don't want people to think 28 and you're not experienced, because you are, man. Like that's a lot. That's a long time.
Yeah, and talk about bootstrapping. I mean, I bought my first property. I had $5,000 in the bank, right? And I borrowed immediately. I started using creative financing tactics. I had no money. I borrowed from my parents, from my friends, from my uncle. Put together this deal that I had no business doing. I ultimately ended up selling that deal, moving into that was a 2-family, sold it, walked away with a decent sized check for a 23-year-old at the time. Then I moved that into a 3-family. I actually lived in that 3-family with my now wife, and we saved, 50, 60 grand in a matter of 6 or 7 months just by living for nothing. I had the other 2 units covering my rent. So I did a buy and hold with a mix of a flip. Then I did a house hack. Then we graduated. We both graduated with our master's degrees. We're both actually PAs, or I used to be. She's about to actually retire as well. But
retired at 28. I love that.
That's great. Retire from medicine, but like I work 25 times as much now. Like, but I like it. It's much different. But anyways, we ended up selling that 3-family, and then I started buying bigger multifamilies. So I accumulated almost 200 units just doing multifamily, raising money, pulling in some partners, really focusing on off-market deals. And then today, I still do multifamily every now and then, but, the market's kind of shifted a little bit. So, over the last 2 years or so, I've been, we'll probably flip, probably 30 homes this year. We wholesale probably, somewhere between 15 and 20 deals a year. And then I've got a couple of large development deals going on right now. In the background. So yeah, we have a little bit of everything in the real estate space going on right now, but I don't want people to think that you can just jump into real estate and do everything at once. I really focused for 3 years on just multifamily. Then the last 2 years, I really mastered flipping. And now I'm, just diving into like development, right? So the next couple of years is going to be just development. And it's not that I'm not doing the others, but I've already mastered those, right? Like I have a team that's running those. It's on autopilot, I guess you could say. And so yeah, that's where we're at today.
Incredible, man. I love that. And a lot we're going to get into that. What I love about that is what I think is encouraging about you and your story, and what I want people to hear is there are a couple really tangible and core skills behind Ryan's success. And that's what we're going to talk about today. That when you understand that, it's not just I need to be a master at multifamily, or I need to be a master at development. It's like I need to improve my skills, master these skills, so that I can translate those skills into multiple different things. And what Ryan does such a good job of, is why I want to bring on the show, is like, you didn't just say I'm just a multifamily investor, and now the market's kind of turning. It's hard to just buy and hold multifamilies. Oh, I'm out. Like I can't make money right now. It's like, no, you just say, hey, how do I take what I already know, this skill I have, and then put that into other sectors in the real estate in the real estate industry. And so for that reason, man, I'm pumped to have you on, excited to jump into some of those skills. What I want to do first is just pray for us and pray for our community, and then we'll get going. So Heavenly Father, I just thank you. Thank you for Ryan. Thank you for his life. Thank you for his creativity. Just this man is blessed, and you've given him so many talents, and I'm grateful for him. That he is made in your image, and all of his work, God, how it is a reflection of your creativity, and your ingenuity, and so thank you for that. I pray that his experience, his knowledge, his wisdom would be a blessing to us today. That this episode, this show, all the work that Ryan has done and put into, and the knowledge and the wisdom he's experienced over the last 7 years, God, it would have ripple effects on eternity today, as folks who are listening to this are going to go and apply this knowledge, and that's going to have impact on them and their families and their families, and the folks in their communities. And so just pray, even though we can't see that, God, I pray that blessing today, that it would go forth, and things would be changed. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. What I hear behind all of this, and this is what I want to talk about today, and we chatted about this offline, was like, there is a incredible skill that you've developed over the past 7 years, and it's deal finding. Like, you are a master at finding deals. Would you say that is the core competency behind all of this? It's kind of given you success over the last 7 years.
You know what? I think that for anybody in real estate, you have got to be a good deal finder. It's like a mandatory requirement to start in real estate. Now, you don't have to do it just yourself. You can leverage other people, but until you become really good at finding deals, you are not going to have the options and the opportunities that I have, right? That you have, that other people who are proficient in finding deals, whether it's off market or, using real estate agents or referrals, whatever it may be, whatever avenue you decide to go down, you ultimately have to find deals, right? I mean, there's two things that real estate investors need. They need deals and they need money. If you don't have money, which 99% of people do not have money when they want to get into real estate, or even like for the first couple of years, you have to be a good deal finder. And so I chose, the deal finding route, because I am a junkie for, I like the high of chasing deals, and, just continuously progressing, trying to find deals. And, over time, you figure out what works, you figure out what doesn't. If I can boil it all down, it's just really consistency, right? Like, I'm doing nothing different that nobody else can do. Like, everybody can do what I'm doing. It's so simple. But it just takes extreme dedicated action every day and consistency. I mean, that really is what it is. So
it's the
I don't mean to dumb it down. I don't mean to dumb it down.
But it's
like,
true, man.
Really
I was just talking to my brother this today. I meet with my brother and a business partner every week to pray together and read and just have fun. We kick around, and he's doing every 30 minutes. He was showing me. I'm like, what are you doing today? He's like, I'm writing down everything I do during the day. Every 30 minutes, I have these sheets. I'm like, why are you doing that? He's like, because I don't know where my time goes. He's like, so. And he's like, we get the same amount of time. Me and Jeff Bezos get the same amount of time. Jeff just spends it differently. He's like, and I'm trying to figure out why I spend so much time on stuff that doesn't make me money. And I'm like, that's so true, because we kind of get tired of doing the boring work, right? That actually is producing the most amount of results.
Yeah.
So can we kind of create a roadmap for people today, and kind of interwove your story into that as well, of, you're speaking to your 23-year-old self today, and you want to save him, and yes, your 23-year-old self today, but you're entering in today's market, and the goal is, hey, I want to help you become a master of finding deals and save the 6, I know how it is, man, the 3 or 4 years of beating your head against the wall. It doesn't mean you're going to go make money in the next 3 months, but But I want to talk about kind of mastering this art of finding deals, because when we chat, you're like, man, I could help anybody right now. I could help anybody go make 30K in fees in the next 6 months just from
Yeah.
finding deals.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
stand by that?
Oh, yeah, more, way more. Yeah, honestly, more. I mean, it takes time to build up, but yeah, I mean, that's feasible. There's no reason anybody cannot do that.
So I know there's a lot of people listening to the show like, I like to go make 30K in the next 6 months. So
Yeah.
let's just talk about that, because I think that's going to give us the baseline of like how to go find deals. And then what we can do, Ryan, is like, okay, now that we understand how to go do that, generate income from finding deals, how do we then translate that into bigger stuff like large
Sure.
multifamily or
Sure.
like development that you're doing now? Can we kind of
Yeah.
start there?
Yeah, so I assume I'm addressing mostly people, investors and who are just starting or who are trying to get into this. And so I'm gonna kind of direct it that way to start. First of all, if you've got a W-2 job, don't go quit your W-2 job after you listen to this. I think a lot of people want to get into real estate because they think it makes a ton of money. And you can quit your job in it, and you certainly can, but you've got to be able to, stand on some ground. And to do any type of direct mail marketing or direct email or cold call, whatever it is, it costs money, right? So fortunately, I had a pretty good job when I graduated school, so I had enough money to keep funding my direct mail at the time, and that's what I started with. So if I were to look back at my 23-year-old self, I wouldn't really change a whole lot that I have done so far. And what that looked like when I was 23 was, I bought a printer that I still have right next to me. I bought paper, pens, I bought lists on ListSource. I figured out, hey, I want to buy multifamily property. Okay, well, I can't make anything work on the MLS, so why don't I go and try to go find a list of properties, and then I'll look up who the owners are, and I'll handwrite everything, right? I'm going to send a personal letter to this person and see what happens. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. I just kept doing it every month. I just kept doing it. I'm like, this is cheap. It's a couple $100 a month. Like, I can afford it. Then all of a sudden, I got a lead on a 3-family property, and I ended up buying this property. It was the first call I ever got back. And I ended up buying the property, and ultimately, dude, I made over 100 grand on that one property. And if I look back on the numbers that I spent, I probably spent maybe 3 grand on direct mail marketing. And over the course of like 8-9 months that I owned that 3-family, I mean, I profited what, $89,000 from sending $3,000 of direct mail. And I'm not saying that's going to happen every time, but the point is, like, you do something and it doesn't work. You do something and it doesn't work. You do it again, and all of a sudden it starts to warm up a little bit. And then you keep doing it and it starts to get a little bit warmer. And so I go back to, don't quit your job or don't quit your source of income, because again, it does take money to fund this. And so that's really what I was doing. I was handwriting all my letters until my hands were cramping and falling off. Then I got a little bit smarter and I said, okay, there are people online who do this for me. So I hired a virtual assistant to go on and pull these lists for me. Once I got the list, I would go, and here's something that I think is super important for everybody that's trying to buy multifamily, because I think this show's mostly multifamily, and a lot of people in real estate are focused on multifamily. Most multifamily properties are not owned by individuals, meaning they're not owned by Ryan Corcoran, they're not owned by Ellis, right? They're owned by an LLC or a corporation or an incorporation, something along those lines. And so when you go and you pull these lists and you see a mailing address of Specialized Property Group LLC. Well, guess what? Specialized Property Group LLC, the address that is filed on there might be my registered agent, which is my property manager. And if it goes to him, I'm never going to hear about it. It might be an attorney who filed the LLC. I'm never going to hear about it. So what we do is, and we still do this today, we go in and we look on the assessor's website of every single lead that's an LLC, and we make sure that the address is the actual owner of that LLC's mailing address. And sometimes it's, you really have to dig deep to find that, but then we adjust it on the list and we mail it. This dramatically increases your return. Even if it's a callback that says like, screw you, don't ever call me back again. You have the right contact, right? And it really drove up my, my return on calls, which ultimately is, increasing your return on the investment over time. And it's not just for multifamily. Some people, it's the same for single family, but the majority of the time people hold assets in businesses, not necessarily their personal name. So that's a big tip. So I did that immediately when I was starting off. There were times where I was, I had a 10% callback, which is completely just unheard of. And now I don't have that high anymore because I have everything. Nothing's manual, right? I don't do any of it anymore. It's all automated. But if you send 100 letters out, you could probably get 10 calls back. If you take your pen, you take your, your thing, don't even have this stamp on here. You write down the address, you write their name, you handwrite the letter, and you send it off. I guarantee you're going to get a 10% return on those letters, because who wouldn't reply to it, right? It's like that is a highly personalized letter. So that's how I start. If you have a little bit of money, and you're not broke and you don't want to bootstrap like I did, there's services on here where if you pull that list, you can send the list to open letter marketing or ballpoint marketing. There's a couple of other ones, and they'll just send it all for you. And they charge you a couple cents per letter, and you can mass mail that way, which is what we do now. But yeah, it doesn't.
You're playing the volume game there, right? Because your open rate's not as high because it's not as personalized, but you're playing a numbers game at that level. So your deal volume maybe is probably more because even though your conversion is lower, your volume is higher.
Yep. It's also, I didn't have a presence back then, right? SPG was not really a thing. If you look up SPG now, we've got 65-star reviews. We got a bunch of testimonials. We have a website. Everybody in this area knows who we are. So the goal for me now is I want every single person to see this. I want every single person to see this logo. I don't care if you hate it, you love it. The more I can spread the logo and the name of the company, the more business I drive. Initially it's okay. You need to be the best product, right? Be the highest quality you can possibly be, which is handwriting everything, being super personal. But at some point it becomes the best known person ends up winning. And that is, that's been a little bit of a mind shift for me over the last couple of years. But again, if you're starting off, I highly suggest to be very personalized.
So go back a few steps for me, Ryan, like not just, so you're saying direct mail is still, which is kind of shocking. It's still the boring work that works, but go back and identify like, hey, my goal is to start generating some income quickly. Yep. Right. So what are you targeting? What are you, when you say you're pulling list, are you staying local? Do you recommend folks stay local, or a certain geographic area is better, or local is always better? And then, to what type of deals really would you say you're going to get the best response rate at right now?
Yeah. So I want to be clear. I did not start wholesaling and flipping properties. I started buying multis and I wasn't making any money off those really. Right. So if I'm going to do this to flip and try to make 30 grand in 6 months, or, whatever it may be, whatever your goal is, I'm probably going to be mailing to probate properties, pre-foreclosure properties, try to beat properties to auctions. I'm going to be networking the shit out of every free minute I have. And the reason for that is like, okay, great. You have found a good deal. What are you going to do with it now? Like, if you don't have the money to take this down, you don't want to buy it yourself, you want to wholesale it, who are you going to wholesale it to? Right. And so my mind goes to, okay, let's connect with every single wholesaler in the area. Let's connect with all the top producing agents. Let's try to reach out to everybody who's purchased property, in the last couple of months that we can network with.
And how do you find folks who bought property in the last 6 months?
Yeah, so that you can do that on a lot of these softwares, like PropWire, Invelo, PropStream. You can see, like you can filter it by, county, city, state, whatever you want to do, and you can see you can actually see who bought things for cash, meaning whether they actually bought it for cash or not. You can see that there's no mortgage on them on these websites. You can also go on Zillow, right? You can go on Zillow and just look at properties that look like they've been newly flipped. And go look up the owner of those and see who they are and write down their LLC name, and then go look up the LLC and figure out who the owner is. You can also mail, this is a little trick. You can also mail mailers. It doesn't have to be a bunch, but you can, find the properties that are held in LLCs and then mail those people. Instead of saying, hey, look, I want to buy your property, why don't you say, hey, I'm a local investor. I'm looking to grow my portfolio. I see that you've done fantastic on this property. It looks great. I'd love to, buy you coffee or something, or better yet, I did an analysis. I think your property is worth this much, something along those lines. Provide some sort of value to an investor. People will be blown away. They're going to be like, this guy just spent money, sent me a letter, and isn't even asking to buy my property. He's like, complimenting me on my asset.
Ryan, what have you said to guys like that? They're buying deals. Hey, I am a local investor myself. I see that you're buying deals. I find more deals that I can buy personally. Can we connect so that we could potentially JV and stuff down the road?
Dude, that's usually my pitch line. It's usually, look, I do a lot of properties every year, but I literally cannot buy them all. And so I pass them for finder's fees. I wholesale some and I flip them to other investors. I'd love to hear what you're looking for. Tell me what your buy box is, and I'd love to shoot you some deals. Right. And so you're just slowly building up this network as you're marketing for deals. That way, when you come across a deal, I can't tell you how many times I've done that. And then somebody will be like, yeah, I'm looking for a 6-unit in Gardner, Massachusetts. And then friggin' 2 months later, a 6-unit in Gardner, Massachusetts will come up, and I'll be like, boom. And I don't even have to get the property under agreement most of the time, right? It's like, hey, John, who told me he wanted a 6-unit, how much you want to pay for this property? He'll be like, if you can get it for whatever, I'll buy it for $540. So then I'll go and try to lock it up for $500 or $520 or something. And if it works, boom, you just did a wholesale without even having to really wholesale it. And that's really the quickest way I would do this to make the
Because you don't take any risk at that point. You know you got a buyer, you know what they're paying for. And
exactly.
What do you think about the idea of like, do you think most folks should start as local as possible? And what happens if they're in an area that really is not great for,
Sure.
there isn't a big enough data set to really run your list? And how big is a data set should be to start mailing?
To generate some quick cash via wholesaling, you've got to be in an area that is a little bit high dense because you need to have enough buyers, right? And there has to be enough deals. Whether you're local, hyper local, a couple states away, I don't really think it matters. I think it's like, all right, what do you have an advantage in? Like, do you know people locally? Do you have a car, right? Do you have some, do you want to go look at properties, right? Or is it, hey, I have family that's 3 hours away from here who's interested in doing this with me? Well, okay, well, maybe you should market to them, have them be the boots on the ground. Like, I don't know. It's tough to answer that. Like, what is your unfair advantage in this space? And then take advantage of that. For me, it was I'm local. I know this area extremely well. I've been driving to New Hampshire, Mass, and Rhode Island my entire life, all the time. I know all the counties, all the cities. I know everything, right? And so when a property comes up, I can almost tell you, like, I think it's worth this much without even looking it up. And so for me, it was very simple just to stay local. For somebody else, maybe not so much. Again, I dodged the question a little bit there, but hopefully you got the gist of it.
Let me ask you a different question, or similar to this, but in the vein of like, this skill set of finding deals is how people are going to make a lot of money. However, I talked to a lot of guys come to our community where they're not 28, 29. They're actually maybe middle or end of their career. They've worked hard. They have some decent change, and they want to get into real estate because they know they want to keep working. They want to make more in retirement. They want to start holding properties.
Yeah.
But what they don't want to do, man, is like the grunt work that you're talking about at 23, 24.
Yep.
And they got some money, right? They can definitely pay for marketing. That's not the issue. That's easy to do. But like, they don't want to necessarily be on the phone with potential sellers all the time. Like, who are the core pieces for someone like that you would start with in order not to necessarily work yourself into a kind of a slave labor, for a lack of better terms, to get this business going?
So first of all, you need marketing. So you're going to need a system to do all that. So that to me looks like you need a VA, or you need somebody who you can very lightly manage. Doesn't take a ton of intensive management, but you need somebody you can trust to pull accurate lists and do what we talked about earlier. Find out who owns what, make sure the mailing addresses are right. You need a software to be able to mail these things out for you. So I shout out to Open Letter Marketing. That they're not paying me to say this, but they are friggin' fantastic. Like, the customer service over there is great. So what do? Like, once my VA sends me the list, I briefly just look at it. Okay, looks good. I send it to Open Letter Marketing. They mail it for me. So far I've spent maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes at most. From there, you need to have a way to intake these. Unfortunately, I think it's important that you take calls when you're first starting to do this, so you understand how to work with sellers. Otherwise, you are not going to be able to train somebody else how to do it. And this is the most important part of real estate. You need to be able to sell and market yourself to buy deals. You absolutely have to. I'm afraid you can't skip that unless you go and hire an acquisitions person who has experience in this in the first place. So again, you need an acquisitions position. So you need a VA, some sort of system to send the leads, some sort of way to intake the leads. Then you have to be able to close on these properties, whether that's wholesaling or you're going to buy them yourself. So you need a large network on the back end to be able to move the properties to. Man, the other thing I would say here is I kind of just built out a framework how to do it for somebody who doesn't want to spend that much time on it. But like, the biggest thing you could do is probably just go partner with somebody, right? Like, maybe you don't worry about the back end of it. Maybe you don't worry about the financing of it. Maybe you just focus on, all right, I'm going to hire a VA for $180 a week or whatever it is. I'm going to get really good at finding deals. And I'm just going to pass every single deal that seems somewhat decent to a local investor who I know, and just walk through the deal with them. Like, one of them will hit, and it will pay for your marketing for 2 years.
Bro, and that's the best advice right there, man. People are always trying to figure out this whole game. I'm like, dude, just get deals in the door.
Yep.
Like, well, what do I do with the deals?
You'll figure it out. Yeah, you'll figure it out. It doesn't even matter. It literally doesn't even matter.
Like, you don't have the deals yet. What are you worried about? It's like, oh, well, where am I going to get the money? I don't know. You don't have the deal yet. What does it matter? Like, that what I see, man, is the people who are successful, they know those things are coming and they're working them out as they go, but they do not delay because they don't have the answers to that yet. And that is so key to this game, I think, man. We bought, I always laugh, like, we bought 1,200 units in the last couple of years. And, I still don't really know how to navigate a spreadsheet. Like, somebody asked me today, well, how, like, not, and then the other one is like, how do I walk a deal when I find one? I bought 1,200 units and I still don't really know what I'm looking at. But here's why. I have a great underwriter on my team. I always bring a general contractor with him on my team. Like, I didn't know those things when we started looking at deals, but we got a great deal on a contract. I'm like, crap, I need to make sure this deal is not going to fall apart. Like, what do I do? Okay, let me bring a general contractor with me on the tour, and he's going to show me everything I need to know before I buy or close on this deal, right? So it's, you take action, and when you get the result you're looking for, you're going to figure out the next solution you need. But right now, go solve the most important thing right in front of you.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed. I do agree. I think, deals are the way into this game for sure.
Acquisition person, someone who's bringing in, those leads are coming in. What makes a great acquisition person if you're hiring this person?
Well, they got to love to talk to people, first of all, and they have to be really good at it. So, you don't even have to know much about real estate, to be honest with you. I forget who said it, but most of real estate is just a sales and marketing program. So yeah, it's really just a sales and marketing, right? So from the acquisition side, you're talking sales, right? So you need to be able to have an acquisitions guy who can get in front of a seller and just shoot the shit, small talk. It isn't even about the property. It's building an extreme relationship with that person. And honestly, most of the time you're solving a big problem for these people. They might be underwater on their property. They might have too much work. They might have a crappy tenant. There might be an old landlord who's got a 15-unit apartment building who's had it for 30 years, who is just so sick of dealing with things, right? So ultimately, you've got to be able to talk to people, build relationships, and solve problems. And those are the three keys for an acquisitions guy.
Gosh, I just think about how many people, man, are sitting at home right now needing a job who would love to just sit on the phone and help people solve their problems. Like, there's so many nice, I know so many nice people who would love this role. They don't have to be entrepreneurial. They don't have to go out and take a bunch of risks. They just have to sit and answer the phone, man. And they'll work for, it's such a, again, it's really, really good thought there. What VA team are you working with, by the way?
I don't have a VA team. I have my own in-house. So
okay. You've hired him.
Yeah,
you hire out of the Philippines or where?
Yeah, actually, they're all from the Philippines, all three of them, and they're crushing it. I mean, I've had one for now 2.5 years, and she has just, it's just unbelievable. Like, everything you ask her to do, it's like boom, 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 and she's just like done. And also, dude, she makes like $7 an hour, which in the Philippines is like $40 an hour here. Like, she's like a pretty good job for like not having a degree and for working remotely. So, like, she had it's just funny, and this is like the kind of things that like kind of makes you feel good, right? Like, hiring somebody, giving somebody an opportunity overseas. She just had a wedding last week, and I got a message at freaking 2:00 in the morning because it's daylight there. I woke up in the morning to it. She's like, "Hey, Ryan, I just wanted to let you know I just had my wedding. I'm super thankful for Specialized Property Group. If it wasn't for you and this company, I wouldn't have been able to pay for this. And we're looking to buy a house next." And I'm like, this is crazy. Like, I've never met this girl in person. I've worked with her for 2.5 years now, and like, it's just like, I don't know, man. You're providing opportunity for people that otherwise wouldn't have it, and that's kind of what this is all about. So,
how trained did she come before she started working with you?
She worked for one real estate wholesaler, and then she came into my business, and we weren't a wholesaling business then. So she had no experience in like multis or like running systems. All she knew how to do was like find leads.
But it is helpful to find VAs, and there's so many who've already worked for real estate companies. There's other VA groups that have that they train them. So I think that's really important as you go find a VA that has some training, or maybe even a company that specializes in real estate VAs. So to recap here, you're a big fan of direct mail, a VA to really pull accurate lists for you.
Yep.
Open letter marketing is the software you use to then start sending those letters out. Someone to take the calls. And this is how you get deals coming in. You got to get the phones ringing, and then using the white space. And to your point is like that takes, let's just say someone's real slow. It's going to take them one day of the week to really send out their mail for what, the next month, Ryan, would you say?
Yeah. If you crank out a handful of hours, you can probably send a couple hundred letters out,
Okay. So my point is, you spent one day, 29 days left in the month, right? So
I know.
There's a lot of white space. So what do? We're networking, right? We're talking with agents. We're talking with other sellers. We're going to meetups. This is the work. I always say your answer is on the other side of another person, right? And so that is that white space activity that you're talking about.
Yeah. And I do want to, preface this entire conversation with, this takes extreme effort. Like, I don't want this to seem like you can just do this on the fly. Like, you really, I have spent so many freaking hours doing this that, everyone says you got to spend 10,000 hours doing whatever. I probably did that in like a year. You know what I mean? Like it takes extreme obsession and effort to be good at something. And that doesn't happen with a W-2 job. Like a lot of people fall into W-2 jobs and it's like, all right, I can't really go anywhere. Like all I have to do is show up, I do my job and I get paid. As soon as you come into a world like this, where you don't have a boss, you don't have a floor, there is no ceiling, right? Like you need to create what you build. And so it takes extreme effort and obsession. So I don't want people to go by and say, like, hear this and be like, all right, this is simple. It is simple, but it takes a ridiculous amount of effort and time and work. So yeah, I don't want to scare anybody, but it really does. Like this game is not for you if you if you can't figure it out. You know what I mean? Like you really have got to figure it out.
No, I appreciate you saying that. It's such a good word. And that is entrepreneurship. I always say, like, and I joke with my other entrepreneur buddies, like, man, autonomy is a hell of a drug because of how hard it is to actually have autonomy, right? Of just like how much we will put ourselves through as business owners in order to have autonomy. And that, because it's like, man, it is, I would just say to people, but it is worth it, right? Like, but it is worth it. You're not saying don't do this. You're just saying be ready.
I have a friend who he was like, this is a perfect example. He's one of the biggest wholesalers in New England. He's doing probably over 120 deals a year. But when I met him, he wasn't doing that. And when I said, hey man, like, how did you start off? And he was like, dude, I met somebody who said, go buy a course online, learn how to do something, actually learn how to do it. So it was $5,000. And I'm like, all right, so where'd you get the money? He's like, I didn't have $5,000. I'm like, so what'd you do? He's like, so I went and borrowed $5,000. I took a freaking course with borrowed money and I told that person I'd pay him back because I knew I would figure this out. So they went and borrowed $5,000 to take a course, took the course, made money wholesaling and paid that person back. Who would do that? Like, not many people would do that, right? Like, and that's kind of like, I'm not telling everyone to go out and borrow $5,000 to take a course, but if you can't like come up with $5,000,
I'll tell them. I mean, there's so many interest-free credit cards that if you can't make your money back on a $5,000 course in 12 months, like you just didn't try hard enough. Like I'll tell them, because
it's that mindset though, right? Like
100%.
I'm borrowing $5,000 from somebody to just take a course. Like I'm not even guaranteed to make money, but I know I'm going to freaking make money. I am going to succeed at this. So I'll be able to pay that person back. And that's kind of what it takes every day, doing this. It's like, I'm going to make money on this. So I'm going to keep focusing and keep doing it.
Dude, you get me excited again to be like entrepreneur. I like guys like you with that type of mentality, and it reminds me who I am, because that's it's like talking to myself as you're saying this. So really, really good, man. Can you talk about then how this skill translates into as you've grown in your understanding of real estate and doing different type of stuff, multifamily development? Right? Like, how do you take this and then going into bigger stuff, right? Because clearly there's going to be more money in a development deal or a large multifamily deal. How does this translate into other aspects of real estate investing?
So first of all, moving into bigger things doesn't necessarily mean you're just doing bigger deals, right? So let's say you're doing like maybe one deal a month. Moving up could be, okay, well, maybe my average purchase price is 300, but what if I can do 5 or 6 of those $300,000 properties? You just leveled up, right? Or maybe it's, instead of doing 5 or 6, maybe I want to do one $4 or $5 million deal, right? And so there's different ways of looking at this. And so for me, it was, I got involved in a mastermind group, and I get there on the first day and everyone's telling me how much money they're making. And I'm like, dude, I'm nowhere near you guys. And so my jaw like hit the floor. I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, how am I in a room with these people? Okay, so what are you doing with all these leads that you're not buying? Or like, what are you doing with all the leads that aren't just multifamily properties? And I started thinking about it. I'm like, I let so many deals go. Like, what if I started converting these? Or what if I started flipping them? Or what if I started wholesaling them? And so that kind of opened my mind up to that whole idea. And that's really where I ran with that. So I was just focusing on multi. And then when I got into a room of people who kind of showed me something that I didn't even think of or didn't even realize, I started to make a pivot doing that. And when you start to open up your mind to, all right, I'm not just going to think multifamily every single time, because then when a single family comes up or a piece of land, you're just going to disregard it, which is what I did for 3 or 4 years. The last 3 or 4 years, a land deal might come in and I'd be like, all right, what can I do with this? Like, and instead of me spending a ton of time on it, I would kick it to somebody I know. Like, hey man, like, take a look at this piece of land. Like, let me know what you think. Like, if there's anything into it, I'm happy to negotiate with the seller. Maybe we can tag team it. So that has happened, I don't know, man, 50 times at least, right? And so that's kind of just, that's what I would suggest, focus on something and get really good at it. But once you've mastered that, pay attention to like what else is going on around you. And there's other opportunities that are flowing in that you don't even know about yet. You just have to be open to receiving those. I've had leads on a 650 unit multifamily property from a freaking direct mail letter. Unfortunately, I didn't close it, but like I got a lead for a 650 unit multifamily property. Most people say you can't get leads on multifamily from direct mail. Like that's bullshit. Of course you can. You just have to be open to it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. You know, the other thing I see right now is a lot of momentum or a lot of talk on social media about creative finance, right? Like, oh, let's do creative finance. This is the answer, sub two. Well, the answer, the real skill behind any type of creative finance or sub two is finding deals.
dude, it always comes back to just finding deals. Like,
That's what I like.
Just another way to execute.
It's like sub two is the sexy thing that's selling courses. However,
Exactly.
you can't sub two or creative finance anything if you can't find deals. This is why I want to have you on, because you are the king of finding deals.
Yeah, I mean, sub two is just another tool to stick in your toolbox, right? I mean, you can, but again, you have to find a deal though, right? Like if you don't have the friggin' deal,
sub two air, bro. You know, air's free.
Oh yeah, I mean, that it really comes down to just being able to find deals. And again, I don't want to harp on direct mail. It just worked really well for me. So you got to, pick something and really hammer it.
Would you recommend though, if you're starting, you have $1,000 a month to put towards this, direct mail is where you start?
$1,000 a month probably, but if a lot of people don't have that, so I would say if it's just a couple $100s a month, pick up a phone, like cold call some people, or really network with agents. Like really, you got to do something that doesn't cost a lot of money, right? So cold calling is direct email is pretty cheap, right? You can skip trace things for like 12 cents a lead, like send people emails. There's a ton of different methods, and I wish I could speak on all of them, and I can a little bit, but I really know direct mail like to the back of my hand. And I started doing direct mail with almost no money. So I know it's possible, but it does cost money. So I just, I don't want people to think, oh, I'm just going to go send direct mail out. Like, no, like I spend right now, like, $8,000 to $10,000 a month in freaking direct mail. So like, you got to be prepared to be able to spend money.
Yeah. And you scale that up. I mean, you're doing,
oh, of course. At first it was 200 a month,
you're
right?
doing 30 flips this year, which means you have to be having, several hundred deals to come in just to even transact on that.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah.
That's a lot.
Yep.
Man, we're gonna do something together for our community. I'm even more excited after this show, dude, that we're gonna help a lot of people together, and I don't know what that looks like yet, but I think
I'm excited. We'll put something together for everybody.
After, and I think this is me developing too. Like it was just multifamily. It's got to be multifamily, but now that things are moving, market is turning, I'm realizing that the best investors, the guys that survive this industry over a long period of time, like they know that they don't fall in love with how they make their money. Like they just love making money, and so like they're going to take their skills and shift that into things that make sense. And realizing right now, and what we've taught is a lot of multifamily. Well, I realize you got to be able to know when to pivot, when it makes sense to pivot, and how to bring an income to survive, the hard times. And I see, and I've just heard over and over these successful guys say, don't get in love with how you make your money. Just, get good at it. And so, you're a great testimony of that, of being able to kind of translate into other different facets of this game. So, man, this was an incredible conversation. I really enjoyed this. Where can folks go to just get to know you? Tell them where you're located, where you're doing deals at, and then also where to follow you at.
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram at RJ Coran 08. And then my company Specialized Property Group, you can follow me on there as well. But I'm in New England, so Mass, New Hampshire, Rhode Island. I have a deal in Georgia that we bought last year, but for the most part, I'm up in New England. So and what's funny is like a lot of people, you look online, you can't really do much near Boston. Like it's too expensive. Like it's hard to wholesale. Like it's a bunch of BS, man. Like that's like it's a bunch of BS. Like there's so many wholesalers out here that are making millions of dollars a year wholesaling property. There's so many investors making millions of dollars a year, and like I'm just like living proof that you can do it in an expensive area. So you don't have to go buy a $50,000 duplex to start in freaking Kentucky. So
what was your Instagram again?
It's RJ and then my last name Coran 08. I believe. Let me check on that. I'm not 100% sure, to be honest.
Okay. COR. That's interesting. You have two CORs in your life.
It's Coran 08. So RJ Corcoran 08.
All right, cool. I'll make sure we put in the show notes for folks to follow you. Hey, Ryan, what are you most excited about right now, man, in your life outside of real estate?
Yeah, so I got a kid coming in December. So I have automated everything pretty much, and almost everything I can do. So I can just free up like 4 or 5 months of doing nothing but just being with the little boy. So we'll see.
Right, man. That's such I mean, honestly, you're totally useless for the first 3 months, but
Yeah.
you'll learn that. You know, I'm on number 2 now. But it is your wife needs a lot of help. That's for sure. Or
Oh
your
yeah.
spouse needs a lot of help. So, I mean, that's really really cool. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, hey, really enjoyed this episode, guys. Make sure you go follow RJ, Ryan. You go by RJ?
RJ works.
On Instagram, Specialized Property Group. If you're ever up in the Northeast, you know who to look up. And look out for some stuff that Ryan and I are cooking to help our community. If you haven't already, go follow us at Kingdom RI on Instagram as well. So, Ryan, grateful for you, man, and looking forward to what's next.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, everybody. If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to share this with a friend. If you found this helpful, you think someone else is going to benefit from this as well, let them know about the Kingdom RI podcast. Share this episode. Thanks, everybody. See you next week.